You are listening to Change Radio News. Today is Friday, the 31st of May 2024. The news read by Olive Rujizo. Stories making headlines. Speaker of Parliament Jacob Mudenda continues to act illegally, colluding with an imposter. State drops charges against 35 ZESN and ERC employees, and updates on South Africa elections. And now the news in detail. The Speaker of the House, Jacob Mudenda, continues to act illegally by siding with the imposter Sengenzo Chabangu, who, with the blessing of Senate and House leaders, has declared himself overall leader of opposition in Parliament and member of the Interparliamentary Union Committee. He has purportedly made some changes to committee assignments in the House and the Senate. This is obviously illegal and disregards Zimbabwe citizens' choices. The Citizens Coalition for Change has held a press conference responding to the developments in Parliament. The press was addressed by Senator Timba, who said that the main culprit is Chabangu and he must be stopped. Let's hear part of the press statement.
We have just concluded a meeting of our Citizens National Assembly, which is the highest policy-making body of the Triple-C. By way of background and context, I want to say that the Zimbabwean Parliament is now effective, and the chief muppet in this circus is Sengenzo Chabangu, who is being cheered and aided by the so-called MDC 2019 structure led by Professor Wolfman Nude and others. The puppet master is ZANU-PF. The events of the past week have shown every right-thinking person in Zimbabwe, the region, and the international community that Zimbabwe is not yet ready to be a democratic nation. From August 2023, it was clear that the regime had no intention of letting anyone participate in a free contest to determine who should govern this country. State institutions, in particular ZEC, did everything in their power to deny Zimbabweans their right to choose their leaders in a free and fair election. Against all odds, Zimbabweans stayed the course. They stayed in queues for up to 4 a.m. to exercise their right to choose their leaders. The outcome of the election, which was condemned by all the civilized world, including our region, was not a reflection of the will of the people of Zimbabwe. It was a charade, and its outcome illegitimate. It did not end there. From October 3, 2023, the Muppet, Sengenzo Chabangu, was born with our erstwhile colleagues in tour providing midwifery services. The parents of this Muppet were always known to be ZANU-PF. From October 3, the Muppet, aided by state institutions, went on a rampage to wreak havoc in Parliament and our councils with the intention of reversing the people's will. Willing pawns were found from our number to fill vacancies left by the true representatives of the people. The bigger chunk of the space, however, was reserved for the puppet master who needed 2/3 majority so that they can mutilate our constitution to entrench their power over us. So far, they've achieved that. On Tuesday this week, the Speaker of Parliament then set in motion the final steps of the system's nefarious agenda. He maliciously delivered a judgment in Parliament, exuding the aura of a judge, robe and all, albeit without the wig. He delivered a judgment without hearing anyone, based on falsehood. He alleged that I had made appointments in Parliament irregularly, when I did not do such a thing. What I had done in my capacity as the leader of our party was to notify him that we had given authority to our Parliament Whip to fill vacancies by advising the Clerk of Parliament. This correspondence is available for the public to see, and I will make it public. He also made a bizarre finding that I could not represent my party because I had been recalled, and I had lost my court challenge to that recall. No, Mr. Speaker, you are wrong. There are two aspects to a recall. The first part is the declaration of cessation of membership, which then leads to a recall. Whilst it is true that a recall should be challenged in court, in a court of law, the cessation of membership is an internal matter that can be resolved by the party itself.
Yesterday, Honorable Agency Gumbo and Honorable Joanna Mamombe became the first members of Parliament to reject appointments to be chairpersons or committee members. This was as per the appointment by Sengenzo Shabangu, a ZANU-PF proxy, working with his acting president, Professor Welshman Ncube. Gumbo and Mamombe publicly declined the poisoned offer on their Twitter spaces, declaring their loyalty to President Chamisa. Yesterday, Shabangu illegally removed all pro-Chamisa, pro-citizens parliamentarians from different committees and leadership positions in Parliament, replacing them with his own preferred parliamentarians. Majority of Zimbabweans have called upon all genuine pro-Chamisa parliamentarians to decline Shabangu's offers. The imposter would not be able to effect these illegal changes without the help of ZANU-PF proxies, including Speaker of Parliament Mr. Jacob Mudenda. The administrator of CCC, Senator Jameson Timber, has been assigned to make the deployments to Senate and the House. He has been communicating with Parliament regarding these deployments, but like in the past, Speaker Jacob Mudenda continues to partisanly inject himself into CCC affairs, damaging the reputation of the institution of Parliament. All this for the corrupt benefit of ZANU-PF and willing co-conspirators. Our reporter Wejira Munya gives us more.
Yesterday, Sengenzo Shabangu appointed his proxies to be the chairpersons, portfolio committee members, chief whips, and leader of the opposition in Parliament. He appointed these members after removing all pro-Chamisa lieutenants from being chief whips, leader of the opposition, among other portfolio committees. However, Honorable Agency Gumbo, you have refused to be nominated as Parliamentary Legal Committee chairperson and member by Sengenzo Shabangu. He said, I don't know the leadership of Sengenzo Shabangu. He is a fake. I do not accede to the purported appointment by Shabangu to the Parliamentary Legal Committee. I have served on this Legal Affairs Committee since my appointment by my President, Nelson Chamisa. The recent purported appointments by Sengezo Shabangu are bogus and done by a person with no authority to act in the manner in which he has or on behalf of Citizen Coalition for Change Party. Also, Honorable Joanna Mamombe refused Sengezo Shabangu's appointment as a chairperson or a committee member of Environment, Climate, Wildlife and Tourism. Writing on her Twitter space, Honorable Joanna Mamombe said, I strongly rejected the bogus appointment made by an imposter Shabangu. On the 12th October 2023, I was appointed chairperson of the Environment, Climate, Wildlife and Tourism Committee by my President Nelson Chamisa. I cannot take this offer because I don't believe in the leadership of Sengezo Shabangu, who is ZANU-PF proxy and a fake Secretary General. We are still waiting for more people to reject Sengezo Shabangu's offer. Any MP who is going to remain under the appointments of Sengezo Shabangu is a person who is fighting against opposition in Parliament and also behind Parliament. As the citizens of Zimbabwe are calling for all MPs that have been appointed by Sengezo Shabangu to decline this offer. Reporting for Change Radio, Wejira Muyi.
The state has dropped charges against 35 observers from the Zimbabwe Election Support Network, ZESN, and the Election Resource Center, ERC, who were arrested last year on Election Day for allegedly attempting to announce poll results. Prosecutor Lancelot Mutsokoti admitted there was insufficient evidence after 9 months of investigation. The group's lawyer, Alec Muchedahama, stated they would seek the return of seized gadgets. The observers who were accused of breaching the Electoral Act claimed their arrest was unlawful and degrading, involving torture and confiscation of personal devices, which they argued violated their constitutional rights. In the elections in South Africa, preliminary vote counts suggest the ANC will lose its parliamentary majority. It has lost one of its traditional strongholds, KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, and Mpumalanga. Political analysts are gaining more confidence that the ANC will fail to reach 50%, and this will call for a coalition government. Forming a coalition government will take time, and it's for the first time in South Africa's history since Nelson Mandela ushered in a democratic dispensation about 30 years ago. Zimbabwe citizens are surprised that the EFF is not performing better in the polls. By midday today, the result that accounts for 62% of the vote counting were as follows. ANC tops with 41.89%, followed by the DA, which garnered 22.95%, followed by Jacob Zuma's MK party, which had 11.76%. And the lowest among the four is EFF, that had 9.49%. Yesterday, hundreds of members of the United Methodist Church protested at the church's headquarters in Milton Park, Harare. They opposed the recently held Church General Conference's decision to repeal the ban on homosexuality. The conference was held on 23 April and ended on May 3 this year in America. The United Methodist Church voted 692 to 51 to allow LGBTQ clergy and same-sex marriages. Zimbabwe, like many African countries, objected to this practice. Zimbabwe United Methodist Church leadership stated it will not accept or preside over same-sex marriages. Reports suggest fears of a church split among liberal and conservative lines. On Tuesday night, a 24-year-old Scot, Blessing Kamwise, was fatally stabbed along Waterworks Road in Waverley, Kadoma. The police are appealing for information to find his killers. Kamwise, a Kadoma Cricket Club player, was found with knife wounds to his back and neck. A friend suggested the attack might have been targeted as his belongings were left untouched. In a letter circulating on social media, ZANU-PF activist Mike Chimombe and his partner Moses Mpofu accused businessman Whitnell Chivayo of fraud. They claim he altered their contract with Renform and Better Brands for a $40 million tender. This tender was to supply biometric voter registration kits to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, ZEC, last year. The letter reveals inflated invoices by up to 235%. Chivayo allegedly excluded his partners and is now lavishly spending the tender money on luxury items. The majority of Zimbabwean citizens strongly condemned the illegal removal of citizen representatives known to be aligned with President Nelson Chamisa from their positions as chairpersons of portfolio committees, committee members, chief whips, and the leader of the opposition in parliament. Zimbabwe citizens are saying this act is unlawful and must not be accepted, as it has been going on far too long. The citizens' will should not be disregarded willy-nilly, as Zimbabweans are witnessing. ZANU-PF proxies, including Speaker of Parliament Mr. Jacob Mudenda, are relentlessly disregarding Zimbabwe citizens' choices and the laws of the country that does not allow a Speaker of Parliament to make changes on unannounced decisions without a court order. Let's hear more from our Change Radio reporter, Wejira Munya.
Yesterday, Zimbabweans at large have been equally shocked after Sengezo Shabangu wrote to the Speaker of Parliament recalling or removing every member of portfolio committee, chief whips, among others who were appointed by Senator Jameson Timber. The appointments that were made by Senator Jameson Timber were based on people or parliamentarians and senators who are pro-President Nelson Chamisa. Therefore, their removal of pro-President Nelson Chamisa's lieutenants in parliamentary portfolio as chief whips and also as opposition leader of the House have made Zimbabweans to strongly condemn the appointments that were made by Sengezo Shabangu, who is ZANU-PF proxy and also Fake Citizen Coalition for Change Secretary General. Sengezo Shabangu is working in cahoots with the ZANU-PF and also his acting president, Professor Welcome Ncube, to dismantle the opposition here in Zimbabwe. One of the top senior members that was recalled by Shabangu and his bogus team is Honorable Clifford Hlwatshayo, who was the leader of parliament. He was then replaced by Chikanga member of parliament Lynette Karenyi Kore as the new leader of the opposition. Many pro-Chamisa lieutenants have been removed from these positions and were replaced by pro-Shabangu members. Majority of Zimbabwe citizens have said to all MPs who are pro-Chamisa they must refuse to be nominated by Shabangu, and therefore they must decline these appointments by self-imposed Secretary General of Citizen Coalition for Change. They said if these MPs remain in this position, it means they are working hand in glove with the ZANU-PF proxies to destroy President Nelson Chamisa and also the opposition here in Zimbabwe. Reporting for Change Radio, Wejira Munya.
About 10 houses were destroyed by the City of Harare Municipal Police and officials in Hatcliffe Extension Consortium area. The council claims that the houses were built on an area reserved for a school, shops, and other social amenities. Social commentators urge citizens to inquire fully before building houses. Meanwhile, 11,000 Epworth residents who were promised title deeds by ZANU-PF during last year's election campaigns are yet to receive them. Epworth residents are worried as they may be forced to leave their homes anytime by the government, as they have nothing to show for the land allocated to them. Epworth residents realize they may have been taken for a long ride by ZANU-PF conmen to get their votes. On Wednesday, Rufaro Stadium received a new batch of service delivery equipment which were commissioned by Mayor Jacob Mafume. This equipment will go a long way in improving garbage collection and transportation to the dump site at Pomona. Donald Trump, aged 77, the former president of United States, was unanimously convicted by a jury of 12 in a New York court on Thursday and now awaits sentencing for falsifying documents to cover up a payment in order to silence a porn star ahead of the 2016 election. He was convicted of all 34 counts he was charged with. The matter was set for sentencing on July 11, 2024. Yesterday, 3 police officers, Admo Nyamaropa, aged 32, Andrew Magwenzi, aged 35, and Prince Mugove Kuchekenya, aged 39, stationed at Beitbridge, were convicted of robbery. The robbery was committed on the 17th of April last year. They used a gun to force one Timothy Muhirasiranwa out of his new car. The cases, including armed robbery orchestrated by police and army members, are increasing in the country due to low wages received by these government workers. Details on whether the stolen motor vehicle was recovered or not are not yet clear. Nyamaropa was sentenced to 10 years in prison with 2 years suspended, whilst Magwenzi and Kuchekenya were sentenced to 10 years in prison, with each of which 2 years were suspended. As the cholera crisis continues to spread across Zimbabwe, we at Change Radio encourage citizens to wash their hands with soap and running water, not to eat half-cooked meat, to wash vegetables, fruits, and other produce thoroughly with clean boiled water before eating, to always boil water before drinking, and to maintain good hygiene always. And finally, in sports news, Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture Kirsty Coventry informed Parliament that the Treasury has impeded renovations at the National Sports Stadium. Due to this delay, the Zimbabwean national men's team must play their World Cup qualifier in South Africa. Although $136.2 billion Zimbabwe dollars was allocated in the 2024 budget for sports and infrastructure, the funds have not been dispersed. Contractors stopped work in early 2024 due to non-payment. Coventry emphasized that despite assurances, the Ministry of Finance has not released the necessary funds to continue renovations. A Zimbabwean comedian based in the United States, Learnmore Jonasi, has angered ZANU-PF as he used the real situation in Zimbabwe as a joke, entertaining Americans at a just-ended America Has Talent competition. Let's hear part of his jokes that made him win the top prize.
Like they recently installed a traffic light in my village. Everybody was so excited about this traffic light. We were all taking photos with it. Oh my God! Kissing the traffic light. We don't need a traffic light in my village. We don't need, because we don't drive like you Americans. You guys drive crazy.
To end the bulletin, here are the headlines once again. Speaker of Parliament Jacob Mudenda continues to act illegally, colluding with an imposter. State drops charges against 35 ZESN ERC employees, and the updates on South Africa elections.